This is Don Hollenbeck in the conference chamber of the Admiralty in London. On this 23rd day of May, 1701, Sir Rodney Graves, prominent member of the House of Commons, has still not arrived for his scheduled appointment at this time with Lord Orford, First Lord of the Admiralty. Sir Rodney requested that appointment. It's expected he will present a petition to Lord Orford signed by several members of the House of Commons. That petition will request a stay of execution for Captain William Kidd, who within the hour is scheduled to hang at Execution Dock at Wapping on the Thames for piracy on the high seas. Here in the conference chamber of the Admiralty, a group of reporters are crowded around the table where Lord Orford presides.
May 23rd, 1701, London, England. You are there.
A prominent member of the House of Commons makes an 11th hour attempt to stay the hanging of Captain Kidd, condemned for piracy. CBS takes you back 247 years to the truth behind a false legend. All things are as they were then, except for one thing. When CBS is there...
You are there.
You Are There, produced and directed by Robert Louis Cheon, is based on authentic historical fact and quotation. And now...
London, the conference chamber of the Admiralty, and Don Hollenbeck.
Successful in securing from Lord Orford a stay of execution for Captain Kidd. The captain is 56 years old, an American colonial from New York. He was commissioned 3.5 years ago by Lord Orford to sweep the seas of pirates who were destroying English trade. After 18 months on the high seas, it was alleged that Captain Kidd was using his royal commission as a cloak for his own profitable freebooting. The Admiralty ordered the arrest in Boston 2 years ago. Captain Kidd was brought to England and indicted for piracy. After serving 2 years in Newgate Prison, he was brought to trial last week and condemned to hang. The trial was a sensational affair. It involved personages in high office here in England. There have been charges made in the House of Commons that despite the verdict of the Admiralty Court, Captain Kidd is no pirate, that he is in truth a scapegoat for certain prominent noblemen in the government who wish to see him dead because dead men tell no tales. Sir Rodney has just come into the conference chamber, accompanied by several other members of the House of Commons. The reporters are crowding around him, hurling questions at his head.
Sir Rodney. Gentlemen, please, I cannot answer all of you at once.
Sir Rodney, on what basis does your petition request the stay of execution?
A certain new evidence has come to light which casts considerable doubt on the guilt of Captain Kidd. We feel that he should have another opportunity to substantiate his claim of innocence.
What evidence, Sir Rodney?
At the moment, I cannot say.
But, Sir Rodney, what hopes have you that Lord Orford will grant a stay at this last moment?
There is still time. All that is needed is a word to the sheriff. If Lord Orford is a just man, I fail to see how he can deny us.
It is true, though, isn't it, that Lord Orford will be tried on a bill of impeachment in the House of Lords next
yes,
week? Tried
I fail to see
Well, his lordship will be tried, won't he, for illegally sanctioning the Kidd expedition?
That is correct, but I don't see how...
Sir Rodney, you are the chief mover of the bill of impeachment against Lord Orford, and...
I stand not alone in my opposition to the present government.
What I'm trying to get at, Sir Rodney, is that certain quarters have charged that you are trying to keep Captain Kidd alive in the hope that he will offer damaging testimony against Lord Orford.
If Captain Kidd has anything to contribute, he should be heard.
Sir Rodney, do you think that Captain Kidd is...
Gentlemen, make silence. The First Lord of the Admiralty.
Lord Orford is entering the conference chamber, followed by two undersecretaries. The First Lord of the Admiralty is his tall man, well past his middle years, a stern face, and carries himself with that self-contained, cool manner so typical of him under all circumstances. He's taking his place now at the head of the conference table. He's busy with some papers, made no sign of acknowledgement to the petitioners. Sir Rodney, the other members of the House are standing, waiting for his attention. Lord Orford looks up now. He's leaning back in his chair. For the first time, he has looked directly at Sir Rodney. His lordship is speaking.
Gentlemen, your concern with me. State it.
My lord, we beg your consideration for the matter contained in this petition, which we hereby present.
I am pressed for time, gentlemen. I note the length of this document. Briefly, what is contained therein?
Speaking for several gentlemen of the House of Commons and others, we petition for a stay of execution for Captain William Kidd.
In my opinion, this man, William Kidd, was fairly tried and justly condemned. Unless you can produce particulars that have not yet come to light and that have some bearing upon his case, I see no reason to set aside the verdict of the court.
New particulars, my lord, have come to our attention, which have direct bearing on a matter to be presented to Commons, to the House of Lords, next week. The House Committee on Trade meets today to consider those particulars. Now, in our judgment, it is essential that Captain Kidd be interrogated by this committee.
Captain Kidd has twice been interrogated by the House before his trial.
Yes, my lord. But as I have said, new particulars have come to light upon which we wish to question him.
Well, shortly, sir, what are these new particulars?
At this moment, my lord, it would be injudicious to make them public. They are a matter for House consideration.
Indeed, sir. You come before me and plead that I set aside the verdict of the Admiralty Court. On what basis, pray? You refuse to tell me the basis unless you grant me just inducement this petition denied.
My lord, are we to understand that you deny the rights of the House of Commons to make investigation into matters which concern the welfare of His Majesty's government?
I do not deny the House. I deny this unwarranted and unofficial procedure.
But, my lord, time presses. Captain Kidd is to be hanged within the hour.
It is indeed unfortunate. Very unfortunate. Petition denied.
This is Don Hollenbeck again. As you heard, petition denied. Lord Orford has risen. The sign the interview is over. He's walking toward the door now, followed by his undersecretaries. The reporters have surrounded Sir Rodney again, besieging him with questions. Sir Rodney, are you still going ahead with your efforts to get a stay of execution?
Well, are you going to take the matter up with the House?
Do
you think there's time, sir?
As long as Captain Kidd is alive, we still do everything in our power to bring him before the Committee of Trade. And now, if you will excuse me, gentlemen, the matter is pressing, and I must get...
Sir Rodney Graves is leaving the Admiralty Conference Chamber. As you heard, he means evidently to continue his efforts to get a stay of execution. This is Don Hollenbeck returning you to our studios here in London.
This is Quincy Howe. We've been listening, as you have, to Don Hollenbeck's report from the Admiralty, and probably the same question has occurred to you that's occurred to us here in our London studios. Just what can Sir Rodney Graves do now to secure this stay of execution for Captain Kidd? Well, he could go at once to the House of Commons. He could ask the Committee on Trade to make an official request for a stay. The House of Commons just grabs every opportunity to discredit the House of Lords, especially when a member of the upper house, like Lord Orford, also happens to hold high office in His Majesty's government. The First Lord of the Admiralty, however, gave no guarantee that he would honor even an official request from the lower house. If Captain Kidd does not hang within the hour as scheduled, Lord Orford better start worrying about those impeachment proceedings next week. Because if Captain Kidd is kept alive to testify, the best opinion is that the First Lord of the Admiralty will be found guilty of misconduct and dismissed from office. As for Captain Kidd, well, he'd probably have a new trial with a pretty good chance of getting off. The whole case hinges on whether Lord Orford is guilty or innocent of the charges made against him, and on what new evidence Sir Rodney... in fact, we may have some new light on that right now. Ned Calmer reports that the Committee on Trade is just convening in the House of Commons to hear Sir Rodney Graves. So over to the House and Ned Calmer.
The committee chamber is packed with members of the Committee of Trade, as well as other members of the House and spectators here. The committee members are seated on a long platform at the end of the chamber. Chairman at the center, clerks below taking notes. Sir Rodney Graves started speaking a moment ago, reporting briefly on his meeting with Lord Orford. So let's listen.
A bill of impeachment against Lord Orford, which will be tried in the House of Lords next week. This bill will charge that the First Lord of the Admiralty did propose to two gentlemen by name Samuel Newton and William Reynolds that they undertake to organize a venture to clear the seas of pirates. The venture was to be launched for their private gain. Profit to be derived from the booty seized from the hands and vessels of the pirates taken. Lord Orford then commissioned one Captain William Kidd, master of the enterprise. Now, in the bill of impeachment, this committee has charged that Lord Orford had no legal right to commission under the Great Seal of England a sea captain who would engage in an enterprise for private gain.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, sir.
Mr. Harrison?
Thank you.
Mr. Harrison is a member of the committee who voted against the bill of impeachment and has consistently defended Lord Orford.
And in proof, he has been beguiling us of information we already have at our disposal. He is once again attempting to besmirch the reputation of a worthy nobleman who has unfailingly and unselfishly devoted himself to the service of the crown.
Oh, rubbish.
What is this technicality of legality? Can anyone doubt that his lordship acted in good faith in granting Captain Kidd his commission? Can anyone doubt that he was motivated purely by a desire to further the trade advantages of England in clearing the seas of the scourge of piracy?
We are not here to debate that point, Mr. Harrison.
Oh.
No, sir. A majority of the committee has voted to put the matter to a test, entering a true bill of impeachment against my Lord Orford.
Really?
Yes. The matter of this impeachment will be determined by a trial of his peers in the House of Lords. I would request, Mr. Chairman, that the honourable member refrain from throwing obstructions and difficulties in our efforts to see justice done.
You may proceed, Sir Rodney.
Thank you. Now, this committee has been summoned to hear a request for an official action to stay the imminent execution of Captain Kidd. I urge this action because certain new particulars have come to light which make it imperative that Captain Kidd be interrogated further.
What are these particulars, Sir Rodney?
While we did not choose to divulge them to the First Lord, it is fitting that they be revealed to this body. The new particulars that have come to our attention are namely these: that the two gentlemen, Samuel Newton and William Reynolds, were naught but cloaks, go-betweens, to hide the identities of the true parties who hope to profit hugely by the enterprise. And I have reference specifically to our esteemed Chancellor of the Exchequer, Lord Somers, and to our equally esteemed First Lord of the Admiralty, Lord Orford.
Sir Rodney's accusation has produced a sensation in this committee chamber. If Sir Rodney can substantiate his charge, it will result in a scandal that will undoubtedly prove the end of the political careers of both Somers and Orford. These are serious charges of malfeasance in office. Mr. Harrison is asking for the floor. Let's listen again.
Thank you.
Most unjust, Mr. Speaker, most unjust. Not at all according to English tradition. Not at all.
The honourable gentleman, Mr. Harrison, no doubt would have proof of my allegations.
Indeed, sir, I would. I will not stand by silently and hear such libels directed against two such honourable noblemen. The gentleman had best take care that he has proof, and proof indeed to support these scandalous statements.
I have the proof. I hold here in my hand a deposition signed before witnesses by Mr. Samuel Newton and Mr. Reynolds. The deposition attests to the fact that they, Mr. Newton and Mr. Reynolds, did secretly covenant with my lords Orford and Somers to hold in trust for my lords all ships, vessels, goods, merchandise, treasures, and other things that Captain Kidd might take as prizes on the high seas. In short, gentlemen, Mr. Newton and Mr. Reynolds were naught but paid agents, acting secretly in behalf of my lords Orford and Somers. The whole venture was designed by my lords Orford and Somers to use their high offices to line their own pockets. Now, sir, Mr. Chairman, can the honourable gentleman, Mr. Harrison, disprove that?
Mr. Harrison? Mr. Harrison makes no comment. Gentlemen, I believe our duty is clear. Sir Rodney?
Mr. Chairman, I move that this committee, officially, on behalf of the House of Commons, do at once petition Lord Orford to stay the hanging of Captain Kidd.
The honourable members of the committee have heard the motion. I note their accord. Sir Rodney is instructed to proceed at once.
This is Ned Calmer again. Sir Rodney's motion has been carried. Mr. Harrison was the only dissenter, but while the motion was being voted, word reached us that Captain Kidd has been taken from Newgate Prison and is now on his way to the execution dock at Wapping. Lord Orford apparently is determined to go on with the execution. John Daly is at execution dock, so over to him.
Here at execution dock off the Wapping stairs on the Thames, this great crowd gathered here still hasn't heard that Captain Kidd is on his way from Newgate Prison.
Newgate Prison is only about a quarter of a mile from this dock, but Captain Kidd will not come directly to the gallows on this last journey, if it is to be his last journey. Tradition requires that the cart carrying the condemned stop before the portals of St. Sepulchre. There, the preacher will come out on the steps of the church and deliver a sermon to all those within hearing, warning them that the wages of sin is death, and pointing to Captain Kidd as the illustration of gospel truth. When we hear the bells of St. Sepulchre as they are being tolled, we will know that Captain Kidd has reached the church. From there, after the sermon, it's only a matter of minutes to this dock. A public hanging always draws a huge audience here in London, but never since the day of Charles I, the day he was beheaded in 1649, has there been such a turnout to witness an execution. The stretch of beach exposed by the low tide is jammed with spectators. Scores of small boats filled with onlookers have collected along the riverfront close to the gallows. Behind them is a row of barges packed with people at 2 shillings a seat, I've been told, and the rigging of the ships moored to the nearby docks is swarming with seamen. Along Wapping Street, facing the waterfront, they're even perched upon the chimney top and the high, sharply pitched roofs of the buildings. There's no doubt that the wide publicity accorded the trial last week, the sensational character of the evidence. Oh, the hangman has just appeared on the dock. And the crowd is joshing him. As you can hear, a favorite sport on these occasions. Yeoman of the halter, Sir Surveyor of the last drop. Some of the men and women here are shouting out. Jack Ketch, they call him, and that is not his real name. Every hangman since the days of the original hangman, whose name really was Jack Ketch, who, by the way, was hanged himself, every hangman since that time has been called Jack Ketch. And now the crowd is chanting a doggerel. Poor Jack Ketch, whose neck you're going to stretch. Listen to them for a minute. Jack Ketch looks greatly offended by the levity of this crowd. He scowls, turns his back on the people, and gives some instructions to his assistants. Jack Ketch wears a black cloak. He was a butcher by trade, but now I'm told he's quite proud of his office of public hangman. He's paid on a fee basis for each hanging and also gets whatever gratuities the victim may cast in his direction for quick and gentle treatment. There are the bells of St. Sepulchre. Captain Kidd's cart has now stopped at the church, and in a moment the preacher there will begin his sermon on the steps. The crowd here has heard the bells, is suddenly silent, for this crowd knows the meaning of the bells. And the sudden silence has served to highlight the cries of the vendors who don't stop for anything. They're still going about their business, and they've been doing a brisk trade all morning, peddling their wares, selling their services. Here's one now just approaching us, holding his wares high above his head as he pushes his way through the crowd. He's selling buns and singing out that they're hot and sweet. Let's see if we can pick him up for you. This way, Fred. I'll have one of those.
Very hot, sweet buns. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. And there's another one of the vendors. I can't make... Oh, yes, I can. I see now what his trade is. He's a tooth puller. He's carrying a vicious-looking pincers in one hand, a bowl in the other, and there's a blood-stained towel over his shoulder.
Hide, a tooth drawer.
And Kind Heart, the tooth drawer, is walking off into the crowd again. And while we were listening to him, we had word that something is happening at St. James's Palace, which may have important bearing on the fate of Captain Kidd. The cart carrying Captain Kidd will be at St. Sepulchre's for a few moments yet. So this is John Daly at Execution Dock, and now to Ken Roberts at St. James's Palace.
I'm in an anteroom off His Majesty's reception chambers. Captain John Humphreys is waiting for an audience with the King. Captain Humphreys is the American master mariner, the friend of Captain Kidd's, who came all the way from New York to bear character witness for Kidd at his trial last week. Captain Humphreys is ready to reveal to His Majesty certain new and sensational information which he hopes will cause the King to intervene even now and save Captain Kidd. He has told that information to one of the King's secretaries, and he's going to repeat it for us now. Captain Humphreys, what are you going to tell the King?
I shall tell His Majesty that if they hang Captain Kidd, they hang an innocent man.
An honest mariner, a good husband, and a kind father who enjoys the respect of every decent citizen in New York.
Yes, Captain, but what's the new evidence you have?
I am ready to swear to His Majesty that Captain Kidd received secret instructions from my Lord Belmont, governor of New York Province, that if under the cloak of his royal commission my friend went a freebooting himself, the Admiralty would conveniently close its eyes. He'd have naught to fear. In fact, it was expected of him.
What has Lord Belmont to do with this case?
The governor of New York, sir, was another gentleman who, together with my lords Orford and Somers, would have profited secretly by the venture.
I see. Well, what proof have you to back up that statement, Captain?
Captain Kidd himself, sir, came to me after speaking with Lord Belmont. And I remember well how distraught he was. He said he had no choice but to accept the commission. That if he didn't, he'd be a ruined man.
Ruined? How could they ruin him?
My Lord Belmont threatened to bar his vessel from all American waters. Captain Kidd said to me, and these are his exact words, "They expect me to do a bit of buccaneering myself, they do, but I would rather die than engage in such dishonorable practices."
You mean Captain Kidd knew they didn't expect him to go chasing pirates?
Oh, my dear sir, that was a pretext, a pure pretext, not their main concern. If the Admiralty were truly interested in capturing pirates, they had but to send a warship to New York Harbor and find them dining at the governor's table.
Is that so?
Yes, why, the bloodiest pirates roam up and down the streets of New York, sir, immune from seizure, brawling in the taverns, murdering and rioting in the streets, so that honest citizens fear for their lives and remain indoors at nightfall. Sea rovers, sir, with published prices on their heads, selling their bloody booty openly to the merchants on the docks of New York.
Well, why didn't you or Captain Kidd reveal this at the trial?
Sir, my poor friend William knew not where to turn. He hoped that if he held silence and didn't involve those in high office, they'd come to his help. And he imposed upon me the same silence. He swore me to it.
Well, Captain Humphreys, what of the evidence produced in court that Captain Kidd did seize a Moorish vessel, the Quedagh Merchant, upon the high seas?
Oh, Moorish vessel indeed. As Captain Kidd claimed, the Quedagh Merchant was sailing under the French flag and carrying French passes. And as such, he was a legitimate prize of war, for we're at war with France. Captain Kidd was instructed to engage all enemy vessels.
Yes, but those French passes were not produced as evidence in Captain Kidd's defense.
They were not produced because my Lord Orford has them in his pocket. And he means not to let them see the light of day until my friend's mouth is stopped.
Well, that's a rather serious charge, Captain Humphreys.
Hanging an innocent man is also a serious matter, sir.
Well, why should Lord Orford hide such important evidence which could have cleared Captain Kidd?
My Lord Orford, sir, suffered great embarrassment when this affair came to light. Captain Kidd has to be disposed of to save his political career. But I'll no longer abide by the oath I swore to my poor deluded friend. I'll see the king, and I pray God there's yet time for His Majesty to intervene.
Thank you very much, Captain John Humphreys. This is Ken Roberts. Now back to John Daly at Execution Dock.
If there is going to be a reprieve for Captain Kidd, it had better come very soon, because the prison cart carrying the condemned man is approaching the Wapping Street stairs just above me. It's an open cart. Captain Kidd stands alone in it, his arms bound behind him. The noose that will hang him is around his neck. It's traditional to make the condemned wear his own noose through the streets to the gallows. The constable's officers walk in front, carrying tall staves, clearing the way, and behind them walks the Marshal of the Admiralty, carrying a silver oar, symbol of the Admiralty's jurisdiction over all crimes committed on the seas. Behind the cart is a corps of drummers. These drummers are always in attendance at executions. They are more than just a ceremonial touch of color, as we have learned from past executions. We've seen and heard them used to drown out the last words of the condemned, especially should those words contain anything that the execution officials might consider embarrassing. The crowd is excited. Their holiday mood has quickened, and they are shouting at the prisoner with the cart now stopped up there on Wapping Embankment. The drums have stopped. The constable's officers and the Admiralty Marshal with the silver oar are coming down the steps to this dock. Captain Kidd has been removed from the cart. His arms have been unbound, and he's being led down the Wapping stairs. Mr. Lorraine, the ordinary of Newgate Prison, who serves as chaplain, is walking forward to meet him. Captain Kidd is a tall man, sturdy, but the 2 years he spent in Newgate waiting for his trial have given him a worn and wasted look. It's hard to believe the cruel and blood-curdling tales told about him. His face now shows no fear, there's more resignation than anything else. He looks straight ahead. If he knows about the last-minute effort being made to reprieve him, he doesn't seem to be placing much hope in them. Captain Kidd has been halted now. He's about 5 feet from the gallows. He's looking up at the gallows. A triple tree set into the foreshore of the Thames at low tide. The Marshal of the Admiralty is ready to read the death sentence, and Captain Kidd is being led under the gallows onto the platform below it. The hangman's assistant is waiting up at the gallows top. And now Jack Ketch, the hangman, has taken the end of the noose around Kidd's neck, thrown it to his assistant above, and he's fastening it to the cross tree. There go the drums, and the sentence is going to be read. So let's listen.
William III, by the grace of God, King of England, Scotland, France, and Ireland, defender of the faith, to all those present, be it known that William Kidd, not having the fear of God before his eyes, but being seduced by the devil, did commit piracy upon the high seas. For this he has been tried and justly condemned by the court, for which his life has been judged forfeit. May a just God have mercy on his soul. Given under our privy seal at our palace of Westminster this 23rd day of May, in the 13th year of our reign, 1701.
The sentence has been read. There go the drums again, and the macabre business that must now take place here at Wapping Stairs is commenced. There's no sign of any messenger from St. James's Palace, nor the Admiralty with the last-minute reprieve which has been talked about so much in these days since the trial. Captain Kidd himself is looking up into the sky. His final moments have come. The crowd is shouting at him, crying out, "Fare thee well, Captain Kidd. Goodbye, Sir Buccaneer." Nothing can save him now, and his face is a grim mask, as if he himself realizes that nothing that anybody does in the House of Parliament, the House of Lords, or even in the castle can save him from the fate that awaits him if only a few minutes more are to pass.
May 23rd, 1701, London, England. Innocent of piracy, Captain Kidd hanged.
The proof of Captain Kidd's innocence came to light shortly after his death. The French passes carried by the Quedagh merchant, the passes that disappeared so mysteriously before Kidd's trial, reappeared just as mysteriously in the Admiralty files. They can be seen in London today. You have been listening to The Hanging of Captain Kidd, another broadcast in the series You Are There, produced and directed by Robert Louis Cheon. The Hanging of Captain Kidd was written by Henry Walsh and Mr. Cheon. Torrin Thatcher played Sir Rodney Graves, Richard Gordon was Lord Orford, Oliver Cliff was Mr. Harrison, Guy Sorel, the chairman, and Eric Dressler played Captain Humphreys. The cast included Van Marlowe, Alfred Dell, Richard Seff, Alfred de la Fuente, and others. Next week,
March 9th, 1862, Hampton Roads, Virginia. The Monitor and the Merrimack. You are there.
If you tune in over most of these CBS network stations next Saturday afternoon, that's Christmas Day, you'll hear CBS Giant 2-Hour Christmas Festival. All your favorites will be there to greet you. Lionel Barrymore in his 13th annual presentation of Dickens' Christmas Carol. Danny Kaye telling the story of Tubby the Tuba. John Nesbitt in his own adaptation of The Juggler of Notre Dame. And such merry entertainers as the Andrews Sisters, George Burns and Gracie Allen, Gene Autry, Hollywood columnist Hedda Hopper, and many more. Put a note on the Christmas tree so that you won't forget to listen to Columbia's Christmas Festival next Saturday from 4 to 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. This is CBS, the Columbia Broadcasting System.